Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something called future-ready unit planning. Now, this is an approach that really tries to tackle a huge nagging problem in education. How do we get our students ready to actually shape the future instead of just, reacting to it? But hey, before we even get to the how, we gotta start with the why. And this is a question I know will hit home for so many of you out there in education. Why is it that so many well-meaning, well-funded plans just kind of fizzle out? They never seem to create that deep, lasting change we're all hoping for in the classroom. What's going on there? Okay, so section 1, why plans fail. To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to look at what the source material says. And this is stuff drawn from decades of real in-the-trenches experience. It points to a few big systemic problems. So here's the thing. The source points to this huge disconnect. You've got school leaders who are often pressured to just be managers, right? Their job is to keep the trains running on time, maintain the status quo. But what we need are visionaries who can inspire real change. And because of that, these big top-down plans often feel completely out of touch with what's actually happening in the classroom. Meanwhile, you have these amazing, innovative ideas bubbling up from teachers, bottom-up change, and they just get overlooked or ignored. So the system itself ends up sabotaging the very change it claims to want. It's a real paradox. All right, section 2, a new approach. So we've seen the problems. Recognizing that stuff is step 1 for sure. But the next step is to actually propose a new way of doing things, something that's really designed to flip that old model right on its head. And that response, it's called future-ready unit planning. And let me tell you, this is not just another dusty binder that's going to sit on a shelf. The whole point here is to completely rethink the purpose of learning itself. It's about empowering teachers in a totally new way, hitting those problems of top-down management and ignored innovation head-on. So you're probably asking, okay, what is this thing exactly? Well, think of it as an approach where teachers get to be the architects of learning. They're the ones designing these really inclusive, equity-focused experiences that go way beyond just one subject. We're talking about getting students ready to tackle messy, complex, real-world problems and to do it with a solid ethical compass. It completely changes what learning looks like, what it feels like, and where it's all going. And this brings us to the first massive shift. It's about moving the whole vibe of the classroom from compliance to curiosity. So instead of students just sitting there passively following directions, just consuming content, the goal is to light a fire, to get them asking their own questions and to turn them into co-creators of their own learning. That's a huge change. The second shift, just as powerful. We're moving away from what I call coverage, that feeling of just racing to get through all the material, and shifting toward connection. The goal isn't just to throw a bunch of facts at students. It's to help them build this deep, lasting understanding by actually connecting ideas to each other and, crucially, to the world outside the classroom. I absolutely love this quote. It just nails the new role of the teacher so perfectly. You're not just a deliverer of content anymore. You become a designer of experiences, a facilitator of student agency, helping them find their own voice and power, and an architect of equity, building fairness right into the DNA of your classroom. So powerful. Okay, section 3, the toolkit, because look, a big vision is inspiring, but you need practical tools to make it happen, right? So now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What are the actual frameworks that make this thing work in a real busy classroom? Now, this flow is so important. It shows you that this isn't just some rogue grassroots effort that's disconnected from everything else. It actually starts by lining up with the big picture district goals. Then it pulls in these really powerful teaching frameworks. From there, teachers use specific prompts to design their units. And all of that flows directly into a better, richer experience for the student. See how it connects the top-down vision with the bottom-up reality? That's the magic. And here's a peek inside that toolkit. This is what teachers get to work with. You've got these incredible frameworks for learning, things like John Hattie's visible learning, which is all about making the learning process super clear to students. You've got creativity and thinking routines from places like Harvard's Project Zero, and there's a huge emphasis on equity, using methods like UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. That's about designing lessons that work for all learners from the get-go. And of course, it weaves in how to use AI ethically and gives students way more say in how they're assessed. And I gotta say, this approach to technology is really different. AI isn't just seen as a tool to finish your homework faster, it's treated as a topic in itself, something to be studied and understood. The whole idea is to teach students how to critique AI, how to create with it, and how to collaborate with it as a kind of thinking partner. This means baking lessons on ethics and bias right into the curriculum. It's so smart. Okay, let's move on to section 4, making it real. Because, this all sounds amazing in theory, but any teacher listening knows the real question is always, is it practical? Can this actually work? So let's see how this model holds up when the rubber meets the road. And here it is, the ultimate stress test, right? The substitute teacher test. If a unit is really student-centered, what happens on a random Tuesday when the teacher is out sick? Can a sub walk in and the learning just keeps going? That's the real question. And the answer here is pretty honest. On the one hand, yes. The student-centered design is a massive plus. Because learning is driven by inquiry and clear structures, it doesn't just stop when the main teacher isn't there. But let's be real, there are challenges. A sub might not know the specific tech tools being used, or they might not get the unique culture of that particular classroom. So it's not a magic bullet, but it's a huge step forward. So how do you get teachers ready for this? Well, you train them using the exact same model their students will experience. It's called the 5E model. So teachers start by engaging with the ideas. Then they get to explore the tools themselves. They collaborate to explain what they're learning, elaborate by applying it to their own classrooms, and finally, they evaluate how it all went. By living the model, they get really good at leading it. Okay, section 5, the student experience reimagined. And really, this brings us to the whole point of it all, doesn't it? What does this actually mean for the students? What does learning look like? What does it feel like in one of these classrooms? And this right here, this quote is the heartbeat of the whole thing. It's the central idea that drives everything we've just talked about. The entire model is built on this one powerful belief. When students have cognitive ownership, when they are the ones asking the questions, making the connections, driving the learning, they don't just learn, they thrive. So what's the end game here? What are the big outcomes? Look, we're talking about so much more than just test scores. The goal is to grow these essential life skills: critical thinking, ethical reasoning, creative problem solving, real collaboration. It's all about getting students ready for their future, not just preparing them for a world that's already past. And so that leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If we shift our thinking, if learning becomes something we co-create with our students, instead of just something we deliver to them, just think about what becomes possible. Thanks so much for joining us on The Explainer.